YouTube, welcome back to the 5th episode of Never Chalked, the podcast presented by TGE, where it is never chalked. I'm PescaroDB, your host, joined by Klay and Voltz. We've got a lot to unpack in the CDL. We've got a brand new OPTIC roster, a lot of new exciting details regarding the upcoming Call of Duty release, and we're going to dive into our top 3 rosters for the upcoming season. Let's waste no time with this and get right on into it. Start with the team that has been on everyone's mind this offseason. Most already knew that Pred would be joining OPTIC Texas, but I would say the bigger surprise was that Kenny left LA Thieves and joined OPTIC Texas to be their flex. So I want to hear both of y'all's opinions, first of all, just on the roster in general, and then we'll get a little more into like what we think of like Kenny's specific role with this team. So Chandler, we'll start with you. First of all, I mean, expectations for this team, just, obviously it's very early on, but do you think they'll mesh well? And yeah, I mean, just overall, like how do you think they'll perform?
Great question, and I will definitely be 100% honest with this. First, I want to say I was wrong. I kind of thought Kenny was going to stay at LAT just because, he was considered the golden boy over there. I said it in a previous episode, said it even to you guys, off cam and stuff, that I felt Kenny would stay there and they would just try and find 3 guys and build around him. But it looks like that, LAT decided to go with a full reset. Not necessarily the worst case scenario. I didn't say like keeping Kenny was the best option for him. I just thought that's what would happen. But him going to OPTIC was very surprising. Pred, not so much. Like you said, we all knew Pred was going to go there. It was just a matter of when, not if. My initial reaction to this team is obviously expectations are going to be super high because it's star-studded. I mean, up and down, top to bottom, these are stars. Have been in the league for years. But I just personally don't think it's going to mesh well together. I just don't. I do think like you putting Kenny back on like a flex position role is going to bring out the best in him in terms of that. My question mark is who kind of takes the initiative out of the SMGs to play more of like the dirty style of, picking up the hill time here and there and picking up some of the routes that these guys like to take and, just kind of being more of the dirty work slayer because to me, they're both kind of like the flashy slay out type subs. So it's going to be interesting. One of them is going to have to, I would think, in order to bring out the full potential of the squad. And if I had to say who's most likely to do it, I would think it would be shotzzy. But to me, it's more of a question as, does shotzzy really want to do that? Does he want to be the guy that I will take a step back and let Pred be the guy? I kind of don't see that either. I think shotzzy wants to be the guy. I also think Pred wants to be the guy. So that's kind of where I think it's not necessarily going to work out, is because one of them's going to have to, and it's just a matter of if one of them's willing to. And my other question mark about that is, Kenny and Dashy teamed up in the past, and I know that didn't work out well. I know there's stuff going around. Dashy's a much better teammate than he was back in the day. But I don't know. We don't have nothing to go off of besides the past, and that didn't work out before. So that's another reason why I just don't think this team is really going to work out. I do think like they'll consistently place like top 4, top 6 at events. So as far as that consistency goes, they're too talented not to. But I just don't know if I see them, because the ultimate prize is winning champs. I just don't know if I see them winning champs.
That's understandable, and I mean, again, it's an interesting roster because Kenny has been running an SMG for the last 2 or so years. And like we said, Pred, even he jokes that he's essentially been on OPTIC since like January.
Yeah.
When he was initially supposed to get traded there. And I guess another thing with this roster, and bouncing over to your thoughts in general, Klay, but who do you think is going to take on that? Like kind of like what Voltz was hinting at, who's going to take on kind of like that dirty work role, objective role, but also who do you think is going to have to step up in terms of being the leader. Because obviously, Ghosty, who was a rookie last season, was filling that IGL role, but now he's obviously gone. Who do you think is going to have to shoulder the weight of that position?
Okay, well, to start off with the SMGs, my opinion is a little bit different from Voltz. I think that Pred is going to take more of a setback and try to be like the dirty SMG. And with the leadership, I don't know if Dashy can necessarily be a leader with a lot that he has struggled with in the past. But Kenny, Octane has touched on this a little bit, that Kenny's like a perfectionist whenever it comes to COD. Whenever he does something wrong, or like he sees that his team is doing something wrong, he tries to fix it in every way possible. I think he's definitely going to be the IGL for this team.
Interesting take, man.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if y'all watched like the intro podcast that they did. I think it's called Game Chat is the the talk show that they do. And just hearing
they had really good vibes on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people were saying like the team seems very vibey, and I do agree that plays into, that matters for a team, but that's probably been said about the last couple OPTIC teams, and then they have ups and downs, obviously. But I think Kenny, obviously not expected to go there. A lot of people, us included, thought he would end up just staying with LAT. It seemed like he even thought he was going to be staying with LAT until he heard that OPTIC was in need of a flex, and he kind of shot his shot, if you will, to shotzzy in the DMs, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's gonna be a fun team because like it's hard to have an IGL as a rookie, in my opinion, because like if Ghosty's trying to like tell Dashy what to do or something like that, and like if the team's winning, it's not a big deal, but if they're struggling, Dashy's not going to want to hear that shit from a rookie. But when it comes to Kenny filling that role, this is a guy that's won champs, has been to 3 of them.
2 MVPs, right?
Grand finals.
One or 2 MVPs.
He's got 2 MVPs, I believe, in grand finals. The dude's a winner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's so great about his fit overall, and if y'all want to like add to this part about whether you think anyone might have been a better fit, but personally I think of all the people that were available on the market following Drazzah going to FAZE and then Sib going to NYSL, I think Kenny just fits perfectly because he's got like a charisma to him, and he is very passionate about the game, but at the same time he doesn't like let it get to his head. Like if he's popping off, he's not like talking shit across the stage. Like he's a very like calm and composed dude, and I like that he said he likes to have like fun with his teammates. Like that if you can't have fun while you're playing this, then it's like something's up with that. So I mean, I don't know if you guys thought maybe another player would have been a better fit for the flex role, just considering that he hasn't been running it the past couple of years. I'm not sure. We can start with Voltz on that.
Repeat that for me.
Just following Drazzah, obviously that was probably OPTIC's first pick to go and get to fill the flex role. Following him deciding to go to FaZe, and then Sib quickly ending up with NYSL after they decided to move on from Priesta. Mm-hmm. Considering who all was available when OPTIC eventually decided to go with Kenny, do you think anyone else might have been a better fit, such as just running it back with Ghosty, or anyone else that either was or still is a free agent? Do you think anyone would have been a better fit?
So, well, yeah, I think running it back with Ghosty probably would have been better in my opinion. Just because, one, he's going to be familiar with how the team works with, returning 2 out of the 4, because you would just be missing Hook. I think that would have maybe worked better. One, because I'm not saying Kenny wouldn't do it, but Ghosty is willing to do the dirty work because it's kind of what he was doing. And he was willing to step up as that IGL. He's willing to put his stats, on the back burner in terms of win. And like I said, not saying Kenny won't do that, but I do think in this particular scenario, Ghosty would have been a better fit. Doesn't mean he's the better player. I think Kenny has proven, in the past, even though he's had maybe a down year or two, past couple, he's still the better player. I mean, if you're trying to choose between like, oh, can I get Kenny or get Ghosty? I get it. I'm just saying, like, when it comes to roster construction, I do think there's a science behind it, and I think the science would have backed up more of like, let's get Ghosty and bring him back. And you're saying like, hey, I'm upgrading the sub spot by getting Pred. To me, I think that would have worked out a little bit better. But I don't know, man. We're just gonna have to see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, of course, with a lot of these teams, and we'll end up talking about some of the other teams that have finalized a little later. But a lot of it is going to be wait and see. Although it will be interesting, and I'm kind of alluding to our next topic. But obviously, it's officially announced that it is going to be MW3 for this upcoming season. So you would expect this year's game or this upcoming game to run similarly to MW2. I'm sure or I guess maybe wishfully thinking or hoping there will be some changes, such as red dots on the mini map and dead silence as a perk and things of that nature. But again, we'll have to wait and see. But before we move on to talking about some MW3 news that recently came out, Klay, I want to get your thoughts on, do you think Kenny was the right choice considering who all was available or still is available, or should they have gone with someone else?
I think the first person that they were rumored to get was Drazzah, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that.
Yeah, you're right about that. No, you're right about that.
I think that was, even though I don't really like Drazzah too much, I think that was probably their best choice to go with. And then it was either between Sib and Kenny that I would probably go with. And I don't think Kenny's that bad of a choice. He didn't have a great year last year, but his Vanguard year was amazing. So I'm not too upset with it as a OPTIC fan.
Yeah, I mean, and what I guess my final piece on it, I guess to maybe potentially give OPTIC fans some hope is, I will say that it all depends on what the meta is for this coming season, whether there's more than 2 weapons or whether the maps allow for certain scenarios where 3 SMGs on the map and 1 AR makes more sense than the 2 and 2. The thing about Kenny is he has a lot of experience on both roles, and I think he has a lot of situational awareness. Like, he's gonna probably have like 10 different classes, like 5 and 5 for the SMG and the AR, and he's gonna know when to use what based on the map and just like what the situation calls for. And I think he really does kind of truly fit the definition of a flex player, whereas I think it's a term that's kind of been used lightly in recent years, where we've, rather than just saying like main AR and second AR, if you will.
Yeah.
I think Kenny fills that like true flex role. He can really go both ways depending on what the situation calls for. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see. They seem very excited to play together. I'm sure at this point everybody is just ready for the next season to start because the off season has been very long.
Yep.
But some recent news came out regarding MW3. Aside from just getting the name of the game itself, and obviously it's developed by all of the publishers, which is like a first for Call of Duty, where each one is kind of taking on separate responsibilities. So Sledgehammer is primarily in charge of multiplayer for this game, and something that recently came out was that guns and camos and operators and things of that nature from MW2 are going to carry over to MW3. And not only that, but like the progression, like if you're using an MW2 gun in MW3, ranking it up, getting different camos for it, whatever, and then for whatever reason you decide to go back and play MW2, I'm not sure why you'd do that, don't torture yourself, but the progression carries over, which is like a first for the series. But I think when you look at this from a competitive perspective, it draws potential questions about what the meta might look like because the TAC and Vaznev, I assume, will be carried over, and there's gonna be like 30 or something. I don't know how many off the top of my head, but we already know of a bunch of different guns that are being added to MW3, so it's not like we're not gonna have other weapons to choose from. But do you guys think that there is a potential that we see the TAC and Vaznev meta ran back just because the players know they're comfortable with it and they don't want to go through the process of testing other weapons? Or do you think they're ready to move on from it and, like we're accustomed to with every new year of COD, when this isn't the case of things carrying over, they're going to want to use new stuff? Klay, I'll let you start with this one.
I personally don't think that the guns are gonna be the same. Like, I know that they're carrying over, but I don't think it's gonna feel the exact same as it did on MW2. And I think I've heard a couple of the pros say that even though the guns are going over, that they just don't want to use the Vaznev and TAC again. So I think it'll be a new meta.
And are there any guns? I don't know if you've seen any of the ones that are being added to MW3, but I believe there's like an ACR. I don't know if it's actually called that. One of the SMGs is like the Scorpion EVO, which we haven't had that since Black Ops 2. Are there any guns or any sort of meta you in particular would like to see? Even if not necessarily a specific gun, but like maybe the AR is a burst AR rather than fully automatic or something like that.
I'm not gonna lie, I really don't care about what the meta is as long as the map is good and it's actually fun to watch. Like, personally, I didn't like watching Control this year unless it was on Hotel. If it wasn't on Hotel, I just didn't care to watch. So if the maps are good and the game mode runs really good on the maps that are going to be played, then I really don't care what the fucking meta is.
I think that's a good point. I think maps and other things like that definitely are something that people care a lot more about, both playing and spectating. But Chandler, what about you? I mean, do you think that there's potential that we see those two guns used again? Like basically the same question I just asked Klay, or do you think we also just get a brand new meta, and then if so, like what would you like to see?
Obviously there's a chance that you run back the meta. Although I think it's a small chance. I really do think they're going to spend the first month or two just testing out the guns. Someone's going to find something that is good and it screams it and they're going to love it. It's probably going to be overpowered and it'll probably be nerfed, and you know what I mean? Like it happens every year. I know this is a different scenario in terms of like guns are carrying over, but I just think the same thing's going to happen. They're going to find two different guns. The AR is going to complain about the SMGs. SMGs is going to complain about the ARs. Now, what those two guns are, I don't know. I think I personally would like to see the MP5 be used. I know it's not going to be the same as MW2, or potentially. But in MW2, it was a very balanced gun, and I thought it was really good, and you could potentially use it in comp. And then I am definitely interested to see how the ACR is, just because I know that was always a fun gun to use, and like I think it was MW3 that had the ACR, and it was really
MW2
good.
and MW3.
MW2 and 3, the original ones.
Yeah, I mean
MW3 was arguably better though.
Yeah, it was really fun to use in MW3. Very overpowered, but it was still fun, and I don't know, maybe it's that. Maybe it's MP5, ACR, maybe it's Vaznev, and they switch the AR to the ACR. I don't know, man, but I do think it's going to be a meta change. I don't see it being the same. I just really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more likely than not, and I don't have any inside information on this, but I would say it's more likely than not we do see a meta change. Although, I mean, we have had instances in the past where essentially the same gun was used across two different games, such as in Black Ops 2, we had the M8A1, and then in Black Ops 3, We had the M8A7.
Yeah.
And they're the same gun, essentially. You had boots on the ground versus jetpacks in that scenario, and obviously that's not the case here. So I guess it's not like a full guarantee that we don't see the same, or if not a very similar weapon used, but I would like to see a change. I also personally would like to see we go back to the Black Ops 4 kind of era and have more than just 2 guns that are used.
That'd be
but
cool.
that's a different debate there.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people would like to see that. But yeah, I mean, so obviously we've got the official reveal a week from today in Warzone for MW3. We already had like that Makarov trailer, but that was really just kind of hinting at campaign stuff. And then the game is set to release November 10th, likely CDL start date around mid-January. So it's still a long off season, but that doesn't mean we can't take a look at. We have 6 official rosters, like where the teams have come out and said like this is our team for the season.
Yep.
And then we have 2 teams, LAT and Minnesota Rocker, where all 4 players have been, rumored and reported by multiple people. Myself, Jake Hale from Deserto, CDL Scrim on Twitter, where even with all, there's still 4 teams that we haven't really heard anything about. But the LAT and Rocker rosters pretty much are locks. And then we have the 6 guaranteed. So looking at the 8 teams that we have right now, who, if whether we want to go from 8th to 1st or 1st to 8th, I don't know how you guys want to do it, but I say we, highlight the players on each team, because we did see a lot of roster turnover this offseason. Even the freaking championship winning team and runner-up teams made changes. So, I don't know which order you want to go there, but I think it'd be cool to, decide who we think is going to be in order, and then just kind of talking about their teams a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we could maybe just like say who our number 1 is and go on so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So
I think we can go with number 1 and kind of work our way down.
I think we can all agree who the number 1 is.
I don't know about that, buddy.
Atlanta FaZe is number 1.
No, I'm not going Atlanta FaZe number 1.
What?
I am not going.
Oh, really?
FaZe. No, sir.
Oh, I was gonna go with Klay on that one.
Atlanta FaZe is definitely the best team. They just upgraded
Who
their
are you
S&D
thinking?
like 20 times.
I'm going with the Toronto Ultra.
Okay, that's not an outlandish take, I will say.
Yeah.
It's not a bad take, but I don't think.
I
Okay,
mean,
so if we had to rate these teams like S, A, B, C, they would definitely be top of A. I just don't see them beating FaZe and S and D.
So you think FaZe
here-
right now
here-
is a tier of their own? Like S tier
Yeah,
is
they're-
just FaZe.
But
Okay.
here's-
S tier is only FaZe.
Here's the thing, okay, and I'll just say it this way: how much
And-
of an upgrade would you say Drazzah is over Slasher?
100,000 upgrade. What?
You think that's a bigger upgrade than Envoy over Hixie?
Yes.
No.
No way.
Yes. Okay. Listen to this.
I will say.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
Listen to it this way. Okay. So Slasher was a main AR. Cell is a main AR. That did not fucking work. Now they actually got a real flex, who is probably the best flex in the game right now,
Yeah.
Okay.
and put him on with the tiny tears and Cell.
Well, here's my counter.
That is the
argument.
best team right
You
now.
have no role changes that are affecting Toronto Ultra, and you basically just took a sub that might not have even been a top 20 sub in the game with a top 5 sub in the game.
Well, not to mention, Hixie recently put out a tweet. I think it was actually today. He didn't say anything specific or direct, but he really made it seem like he's not going to be on a roster going into the start of MW3, which to win a chip in your first season, to be the second guy in competitive COD history to win a chip at your first LAN event, aside from Scump, and then to get second at Champs and then not be picked up in the offseason, I mean, I think it's a little crazy. I think a lot of people are underrating Hixie in that sense, just because he's not your typical like slaying SMG or anything like that. But I will say, and I said this from like the very beginning when it was like pretty much a foregone conclusion that Envoy was going to be going to Toronto. I think that is the only team where you can like look at that that switch of Hicksy out and Envoy in, and you can 100% guarantee that that is an upgrade. I think you can assume, and it's very likely that Drazzah will be an upgrade over Slasher, but I think it's not like as much of a guarantee as Envoy being an upgrade over Hicksy.
All right, I am going to say this. It kind of seems like this is about to be a very, very lengthy segment. So maybe we could just give a preview of our top 3, and then next...
It's a good idea. I think, yeah.
Yeah, let's do next episode. Let's do a deep dive into this, because I think it is interesting. Like, we're already disagreeing with number 1. But
I was kind of... I will say, that shocked me. I was like, oh,
As an OPTIC fan, it hurts me to say that FaZe is definitely the best team.
Hey, look. Okay, I don't like FaZe all that much, but all biases aside, I truly do think Ultra made the biggest upgrade possible in considering the move that they made. They made the biggest upgrade probably of the offseason. And
I think that's fair to say.
Right. Like I'm not saying they got the best player. That's like I'm not saying that. I'm saying they got the best upgrade. So
Slasher or Drazzah isn't a big upgrade to Slasher.
I didn't say that.
I think he's an upgrade. Just depending on how he meshes with those other guys, because there has been like some.
He's insane at S&D. They're already insane at S&D. That just made them probably unbeatable.
Okay, and that's a very valid argument, but my thing is I don't think it's as big of an upgrade over Drazzah over Slasher than Envoy over Hicksy. That's my argument. And Toronto Ultra did make it to the finals. Yeah, they got smoked, but then they upgraded their weakest link by a wide, large margin. Like, it's not even close. So to me, that's why they're number 1. It doesn't mean that they're gonna be. I don't know. This is my take on it, man. But I truly do think.
Who do you think your number 2 is?
It's Atlanta FaZe.
Okay. I was gonna say,
who's your number 3?
We all can agree here that
I think we'll all have the same top 3.
Ultra. I think FaZe and Ultra can definitely go back and forth.
Yeah, I think
first and second.
I definitely see the argument for FaZe. So to me, it's more like a 1A 1B situation. It's Ultra than FaZe in my opinion. And then my third team is the New York Subliners.
I'm interested in that take. Who are you going to say, Klay?
I'm saying OPTIC. I have to put OPTIC in there because that's my team, so it's a little bit of biasy. But I believe in this team a little bit. I think they at least have one major under their belt. At least.
Yeah, I will say, and this might be like a super hot take, I don't know, or maybe I'm faded, but this set of 4 players I have more confidence in than like when OPTIC Chicago and Dallas Empire merged and the roster was Illy, shotzzy, scump, Dashy.
Yeah.
And they won. I mean, they looked great when Vanguard started. They won the first major. They probably would have won another one if Illy didn't get hurt. But just on paper and considering how all these guys play their different roles, I do have more confidence in this team of 4 for OPTIC going into this season.
I don't think New York upgraded much. They got maybe 3 more kills.
Yeah, but they're the defending champs.
But listen.
How do you not
they added 3 more kills and lost hill time because Sib is not getting on the hill.
That to me, that doesn't matter too much. To me, they are the returning champs, and they're returning 3 out of the 4 players, arguably the best 3 out of the 4 players. And you went out and you didn't downgrade. You didn't
downgrade, but you also lost your dirty player.
I agree, but I think
Priesta was getting on that hill.
See, this is why I think this is going to be another. Like, this needs to be in another episode.
No, and that's why we're leaving it. We'll just talk about these 3.
Let's leave it right there
because we don't have to really talk more about OPTIC. Obviously, we started with them. We did a deeper dive with them specifically, but I think talking about subliners here to kind of close it out, and that will be our 1, 2, and 3, or 1A, 1B, or whatever. I think talking about subliners here is interesting because again, it's unprecedented what they did. They won champs, and then unforced roster move to not re-sign Priesta and instead go and sign Sib from Seattle Surge. And I see what you're both saying. Like, obviously, Priesta is a lot more of that objective guy, at least compared to, like, Skies. But what I will say is it does seem like the decision to move on from Priesta was a pretty unified move from the other 3 players on that team. Not that they necessarily had anything, like, personal against him, but they clearly think that Sib has a higher ceiling, and that will... Obviously, we'll have to wait and see with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, I mean, I just think overall it was, like, unexpected. Like, I genuinely was, like, going to this offseason, I was like, if no one is going to make it, or if any team's not going to make a change, it's going to be New York.
Right. Well, that's what you would think. But
Right.
I am going to say that I'm actually very much looking forward to the next episode because I do think fun... little debates could get the people going, and it's getting me going even just thinking about it. I would love to sit here and just talk to you guys about this all night, but I could definitely tell this could probably go for a while.
Yeah, no,